Hey, everybody, welcome. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen, with another phenomenal podcast for you today. Today is sponsored by Deckhand Sports. We got Glenn Hughes, the president of ASA and the president of the ICAST show that we just got done doing. We're going to have a lot of great things to talk about. But first, I just want to thank Deckhand Sports. Thank you very much, Dave, and everybody over there for supporting the program. Always being there for me, always being there when it's time to take kids fishing, giving like nobody else. You guys give so much and I appreciate it. So thank you, Deckhand Sports, for everything you do for us. And gang, we got a lot coming up. We got the live show every Saturday now at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we do all the sport boats up and down the California coast call in, leave their reports. It's a live show. You can ask questions to the captains of the sport boats, and that starts at 9 o'clock every Saturday morning. Last week, I think we had just a little over 3,000 people listen to it live. So thank you all very much for that. You don't want to miss it tomorrow. We got some exciting things going on up and down the coast, and it's going to be blowing like crazy the next couple days. So it'll be great to kick back and just listen to your saltwater guide tomorrow and find out what's biting on the water and what you expect to catch when you get back out there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But hey, without any further ado, we're taking this guy out of his vacation. He's jumping on here. He had almost a whole day vacation, and here we go, back to work. Glenn, jump on here. Let's go to work. Welcome.
Thanks, Captain Dave. Great to be here with you.
I am super excited to have you on here because there's so many of our members that would love to know what the heck ICAST means, what it's all about, what's the American Sport Fishing Association all about. There's so many things that you have inside your brain to tell all of our listeners about what's going on in this industry, which is my industry and your industry, and our lives depend on this industry. So I am very happy to have you with us today. And there's a lot of people watching that are super happy. You're going to kind of help us understand a little bit about what's going on in this weird world we're living in today.
I thought you were me.
So first of all, how did you get it? Because we all have a story. I remember my dad took me fishing when I was 3 years old. I tell the story on History of Sport Fishing. Got with Michael and I got to tell the story, and it makes my hair on the back of my neck stand up when I think about how important it was, that first fish I caught when I was 3. How did you get into this industry?
I was so fortunate with the family the family dynamic I had. So I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and my folks, when my twin brother and I were a year old, we had 3 older siblings, excuse me, bought a cottage in the Poconos of Pennsylvania on Fairview Lake near Lake Wallenpaupack, about 30 minutes east of Scranton. And we got to spend every summer of our lives from 0 to 18 and beyond. Now we still have the house and the family. And it has been just such a godsend to be able to enjoy that lake and ponds around it. And so I'd say, Dave, I've been fishing since before I can remember. We were literally a year old, and my dad had rods in our hands at the time. It'd probably be more like poles and fishing for just sunnies and catfish and smallmouth bass and largemouth bass, pickerel, perch. Those types of things were what we did from as far back as I can remember. And the time that I was able to spend up there just really helped solidify what I wanted to do with my life. It took me a while to figure it out. So every summer being up there, fishing, boating, sailing, swimming, just enjoying the outdoors was so important. And it was from the last day of school to the first day of school, we were on that lake and having so much fun. And that just led to a life that I was always going to be around it. Of course, I had a couple things get in the way, like go to college and become an engineer and work for Boeing for a couple of years. And I found out I hated it. I did not enjoy that at all. I still might like the numbers, but it was not the way I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And so even at the age of 24, I'm like, I got to find something that I really like to do. And it's like, anybody want to give me a job in fishing and boating? And fortunately, I was able to get into a magazine selling advertising way back when in 1988. And so that led to getting a position to be offered to run Sportfishing magazine as back as early as 1991 is when I moved to Florida. I just met my wife. I said, we're moving, and worked in Central Florida for more than 20 years, publishing sport fishing. And then we bought Marlin magazine, and then We bought Fly Fishing and Saltwater's magazine. This is all part of a larger group. The owner of the company, Terry Snow, was such a great boss, great leader. He had Water Ski Magazine, Windsurfing Magazine, Wakeboarding Magazine, and then we were able to get bought into Bonnier, and no one's buying so many more titles: boating, yachting, motorboating, and sailing. And I had the opportunity to run all these titles. Now, as great as that was, it was also during the worst time when it got to 2008 to 2011. It's like, wow, things can really go south when you get into the recession that we had back then. And I was given the opportunity to move to Washington, D.C. and save the world one fish at a time at the American Sportfishing Association, where the previous president said, why don't you come up here, play my number two, and in about 4 years, he's going to retire. And it worked exactly like that. And so I've just been so engaged with it. And I can't imagine doing anything else, Dave. It's the friendships that have been developed, the relationships, the knowledge, and people that you just get into the business with, say, 35 years ago, are now the presidents of these other organizations. And it's so cool to be able to hang out and call them friends and go fishing with them and talk about fishing all the time.
Yeah, now explain to everybody what the American Sport Fishing Association is doing, because I know there's a lot of members that are, a lot of viewers that are listening, and they're not familiar with what's going on with you guys on the East Coast. A lot of our fans are on the West Coast, and I was very intrigued when I read about what it was all about. So why don't you explain a little bit about it to all the people that are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So the American Sport Fishing Association, it's in its 92nd year, and it was put together way back when to help these organizations come together and be able to defend themselves against different types of regulations that were being forced upon them. As we know, the community coming together is better than the individual. And so our mission as an association is to look out for the interests of the sport fishing industry and the entire recreational fishing community. And so what that means is we're going to spend a lot of time looking at things like for people to go fishing, you're going to need clean water, you're going to need abundant fisheries, and you're going to need access to those fish. Just about as important as anything is access. And you guys know that as well as anybody there on the West Coast. And then we also need to watch out for the trade and commerce and things that go on, from tariffs and excise taxes to things like Prop 65, again, on the West Coast, and so many other things where groups are trying to get rid of lead, which we'll talk about a little later. And then, what you mentioned before and what we think is going to be so important in the future is, help increase participation in fishing. And so we spend our time to do all those things. And if we do those well, then we're helping the industry succeed. And if we're not doing those things, that's when the industry starts getting in trouble. But we're there to defend them as businesses in Washington, D.C. and around the country. We've got 7 people in government affairs, one located on the West Coast up in Washington State. Larry Phillips helps support you guys down in California. And then in the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic, down 2 in Florida and 3 in Washington, D.C. But these issues are not just, there they are. These issues are not just about the fish. It really, in Washington, D.C., we're going to deal with so many other issues to combat at the federal level, the state level, even the regional level, when it comes to issues like access, like tariffs, like dealing with lead and other things that make people, like you said, I think before, that it's really hard to engage people, and hopefully we don't bore people with too much government affairs talk in the next hour. At the same time, we need people to get involved, and our goal right now, and the opportunity to be able to speak with you and your audience, is that it's not just about what happens at the trade level. We need your viewers, the folks listening to you, to get involved also. And so I'm going to kind of keep jumping on this, Dave, that goes back 16 years ago when the MPAs were put in place out in California. And the idea that we were going to lose that is just kind of crazy, that they can come in and just say, we need a marine protected area. We're going to just shut this down, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that got us thinking that, boy, if they can do that in California, they can do that anywhere. And so that's when we started to Keep America Fishing, just a little more than 15 years ago. And so that's where we can go beyond just the trade. And, when our organization's a trade organization, the American Sportfishing Association, but Keep America Fishing is our advocacy arm, and everybody can get involved in that. And so we're going to say it, and I'm going to say it now, I'll say it later, I'll say it at the end, that we're hoping that your viewers want to get involved with keepamericafishing.org, because that's where we're going to talk about the issues. That's where we're going to educate and engage your listeners. And that's where we're going to give you the opportunity to take action on the things that matter to you when it comes to fishing. And I'll add, it's not just about things that are happening on the West Coast. If it happens on the East Coast, it's coming your way. We're going to talk about right whales, and if they're going to impact the way how fast you can drive a boat on the East Coast, guess what? It's coming your way. And so these are the battles we have every day, and it keeps us busy.
Yeah, gang, if you don't understand what he just said at the end there about the speed limit, they're trying to put a speed limit up to 30 miles off the beach. So if you can wrap your head around that, because they're saying that it's got a effect on the northern right whale, which is one of the most rarest whales. And they're saying that us on our boats are going to impede the migration pattern or even kill one of these whales, which neither one of those have ever happened. But that's just one of the many, many things that Glenn and everybody over there and the ASA is working on, trying to inform you and I of what they got coming down the pipe. Because, gang, hiding out and not letting us know and letting the process be the process, I've never thought that was the way. I've always been an advocate of letting everybody know what's going on. And there's so many people right now that are out, I guarantee it, Glenn, they're shocked. What do you mean, a speed limit up to 30 miles off the beach? This is a red hot subject right now on the East Coast. Even though they're planting thousands of wind turbines that are just wiping the whales out, that's not the problem. The problem is a Viking that does 40 knots, that's 90 feet long, is going to take a whale. It's never happened before, but what if? I guess, Glenn, maybe I'm talking out my butt, but.
Well, let me give you a little bit of background on it.
Thank you.
And then we can sort of talk about where maybe some solutions are. So this has been going on for about 2 years now. The North Atlantic right whale is an endangered species. There's only about, depending on who you talk to, 350 total, or 370, somewhere, a number like that. And so NOAA determined, without asking anyone, that the problems are these boats. And these boats during the period of time of the migration and reproduction of these whales, November through May along the East Coast. And so they decided that, at least in their proposed rule that came out 2 years ago next month, they proposed that they would take boats between 35 feet and 65 feet and tell everyone that you can't go more than 10 miles an hour from basically the coastline out 100 miles, not 30 miles.
Oh, okay.
And from the East Coast, pretty much from middle Florida through Maine, from middle of November through, depends on the state. Now there's certain rules in place already around certain areas of the country that boats over 65 feet, shipping lanes, they have to kind of obey some of the laws to protect the whales. And they've determined that this is going to help save the whales. Now, we could go back. They had research at the time in their proposal that there were supposedly only 9,000 boats along the East Coast that were going to be impacted by this. And they had a number, and this is going to be hard for anybody to believe. They had a number that said that these boats averaged having a 10-meter draft. 10-meter draft. These boats 30 feet.
That's 30 feet, gang.
So they were only really talking about the major ships. They didn't take into account some of these things. And so we started having so many conversations with this and having to push back. And there were about 90,000 people that commented to NOAA on some of these things. Now, keep in mind, they have plenty of folks on the environmental side that agree with this. And this is never going to just go away. So we've kind of kept them at bay. We've educated them. By the way, there's not 9,000 boats. There's 63,000 boats on the East Coast over 35 feet. And we did some studies. There have been a few whales that have been hit over the years, but the number is only the numbers that we work with is that there were 5 vessel strikes for 35 foot to 65 foot boats over the last 15 years. But those 63,000 boats have taken more than 5 million trips. And so that there was less than 1 in a million chance that your boat was going to be striking a right whale. And some people have been saying lately, it would be really interesting to go back and see, why don't you go to the insurance companies and see how many boats have been turned in because they've hit a whale, because the whale's going to cause more damage to the boat than these 35-foot boats will to the whale. And so, again, with the infinite wisdom, they've decided that they're still been pushing forward with this. Now, again, we've kept them at bay. We've had lots of conversations. They're meeting with a lot of people. And you mentioned Viking Yachts. So folks over there, John DePersonaire, with the leadership from the owner, Pat Healy, have gotten together folks from Garmin and folks from Brunswick and folks from other organizations that understand electronics and sonar far better than it appears NOAA does, and says, we have the technology today that can solve this. We can share, and we have communications abilities that we can communicate from boat to boat, and we can tell when a whale's in the area and tell folks to avoid those areas. And NOAA, again, has been slow to the switch to allow this to happen, because at the same time that they're whenever this rule's now been sort of, the can's been kicked, and chances are that it's going to be kicked till after the election at this point, which is good. But then it's going to come down to lawsuits. It's going to come down to Congress, and it's going to come down to the next administration that's going to have to deal with this mess. But it's absolutely a mess. If you think about it, a number of boat companies this impacts. It's not just the boat companies and their employees. It's every marina along the East Coast that has boats over 35 feet. No one's going to be able to go out there. Instead of being able to run, let's just say you're going to go to the tuna grounds at 60 miles out, you're able to run at 30 miles an hour. So you're getting out there in 2 hours. Now you're going to get out, it's going to take 6 hours. It's just not happening. And so these are the things that we, that's just one issue that we're certainly in the middle of dealing with other good partners of ours, National Marine Manufacturers Association and others that are doing everything we can to push back.
It's quite amazing. That's just one entity of what's going on out here. And we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, and we're going to try to let you all understand exactly a few of the hot topics. If Glenn and I were to talk about all the things that were coming down the pipe, Glenn would have zero time on his vacation. But it's just absolutely amazing that there's people sitting here going, I can't even believe they're doing it. They are doing this, gang, and it's been a hot topic for quite a while. Like Glenn said, been working on it for quite a while, but it kicked the can down the road. Another thing, and I don't want to get too we can go into so many things, but what we're about to face here on the West Coast is what our great governor came up with and some of his friends about this 30 by 30 that's coming down the pipe for us in Southern California. We got a little bit of excitement when the new Chevron law went into effect, and they took that off. And now that we can actually talk about things, which is quite amazing, because we've never had the ability to talk. Like you said, when the MLPA process was going on, it was just whammo. This is what's going to happen. My father and I, we went to a lot of the meetings, Glenn, and they had us believing that we were looking at these 3 maps at the time. And then when we all went in to find out and we were kind of on agreement that number 2 was going to work for everybody. And they even told us, we like your idea, number 2. And then we sat down that day and they shoved number 4 down our throats, and none of us even saw that map ever.
Oh,
it was so crazy.
And you think about it, and they, again, if they're not anglers, if they're not fishermen, and they don't get out on the water, they have no idea what they're talking about. So they would try to say something like, well, it only impacts 7% of the waters. Well, it was 55% of the fishing that took place. And so, bad idea.
Yeah, and the economic impact was what my father and some of the attorneys that they had hired to show him. And the economic impact that that side was saying was not even measurable compared to when they actually did it with real numbers. And they found out that the numbers were in the billions of dollars instead of the hundreds of thousands of dollars. it was quite a contrast to what they were telling us. I know it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't tell us the truth, but yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, and you think about it again, our organization represents all the rods, reels, lines, and lure companies, and all the fishing nets and tackle boxes, and some of the boats and motor companies, and anything associated with the sport of fishing. And everybody got just totally screwed by what took place at that time on the West Coast. And so, that's why I think CCA California's gotten much more active, and some other organizations came into being, and why we've stepped it up out there on the West Coast as well, because, if you can't fish in California, the whole industry is going to have a problem. The same thing, if you can't fish in Florida, you can't fish along the East Coast, the whole industry gets impacted by this. These manufacturers are not, there's 4 companies that are big. Everybody else is fairly small, but even the big companies still work off of relatively small margins. And like we've talked about, there's so many issues to deal with. It's hard for these companies to be able to make money, produce new product, distribute the product, and then still be able to defend themselves, whether it's in California or anywhere else. And so this 30 by 30, I'm sure that you've been talking with your audience about it for a long time. The idea that you can conserve 30% of the waters and lands is fine. As a matter of fact, we're pretty much already doing that when you think about the MPA and you think about other things that already exist as far as marine sanctuaries and things in those areas. So we've shown your folks in California that you're already covered. You don't even need to do more, and yet they're like, nope, more. And so sometimes we need to spend a little bit more time with those folks on the other side in terms of the environmentalist groups that tend to try to drive the bus out your way and in certain areas of the country. But we have facts, and we can defend our position on this.
Oh, exactly. And we're going to do that. Real quick, though, let me show you this phenomenal kill bag that Deckhand Sports makes before we get any farther, because then we're going to get deep into this, gang. Check out these bags real quick. All right, gang, the QR code's up there on the screen. Elliot just threw the QR code up there. This is an incredible bag. We talk about it every Friday. I can't talk about it enough. The way that this bag's been designed with all the different tie-down straps. You saw those little risers that are inside the bag to keep the fish up off of the water, that slurry water in the bottom of your kill bag. That's the last place. That is an unbelievable bag, and the way that it's designed, you can open and close it with one hand while you're holding your fish in the other hand, where a lot of bags, you cannot get the zipper open if you don't use both hands. And let's face it, those of us that are members of your saltwater guide, we're actually catching fish when we go fishing. So we need a bag we can open easily. That's why Deckhand Sports has been a part of this company for a very long time, and hopefully Dave and the gang over there is going to stay supporters of your saltwater guide. What do you think of that kill bag?
That's awesome. It's fun to see it, because those folks were also at ICAST last week. They're a member of the American Sportfishing Association. Our trade show ICAST was in Orlando last week, and they were one of the 635 exhibitors there in the show. I hope they had a good show, because it's an impressive product, and we had in the neighborhood of, we had 14,000 people at the event. I'm sure they had plenty of retailers wanting to come by and check them out.
Yeah, I think Dave's watching right now. He'll let us know. He'll put message out there. I know that on the water event that we did outside before the show actually opened, that was like its own trade show. That was an incredible event out there. I had so much fun. There was so many people out there to talk to, and I know I love to talk, so it worked out really good. If you guys have the opportunity next year, if you're going to be at ICAST and you have a product, I tell you what, being on the water outside, that was a great preview to what was going to happen. And the company that I was with at the show, Promar, they wrote so many extra sales from that, Glenn, because they were part of that on the water deal the day before outside. It worked out very, very well for Promar. I know that for a fact.
That's great. Now, again, it's a trade show, so and there's 14,000 folks who are manufacturers or retailers and everybody in between, and it's serendipitous that it's a retention pond behind the convention center. And we asked them about 7-8 years ago, do you guys mind if we use this? They had to go through a lot of rigmarole to allow us to use it. And then we went and had the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission actually add bass to it, which have survived and grown. I've probably got a 4-pounder out of there, but and then it does turn into the party of we limit it to about 50 companies right now. There's a second pond we could consider expanding into, but it's nice because it's the day before the show and it gives the media and the retailers an opportunity to come out and check out the product first before we get into looking at it for the awards and voting on these products for best in the different categories of the products. And so really it's a nice way to kick off the event. It's a little warm out there. It's not California weather. We might throw a little humidity in there for you, but I think everybody finds it very valuable, has a good time. And there might be some beverages as well available to folks if they need refreshments.
Oh yeah, the camaraderie that was outside. A lot of people got to meet each other that would never, once you get in there on the floor, you're so busy that you didn't get to meet all the different people that were exhibitors there and get to see the other exhibitors and their products that we would have never got to see. Because once we hit that floor at ICAST, and the doors open, it is super busy. There's a lot of people there that are there to do one thing, and that's to buy the products they need for their tackle stores or their boats or whatever. It's a great show. Before we get much more into the political thing, which is a huge deal in fishing, let everybody know what ICAST is all about. I know we had a fun little game, you and I and Elliot, out on the floor trying to figure out what ICAST stood for, which me and Elliot were totally wrong, but talk about it a little bit.
For Dave.
What?
What does it stand for?
Thanks. Thank you.
I'll let you off. It's the International Convention of Allied Sport Fishing Trades. And ICAST was around before iPhones were, so we had that going for us. But really, the show's been around now for 68 years. It first started out in Chicago. That used to be the headquarters of ASA before it was even ASA. And it was a much smaller event then. And now, when you think about the 635 companies in the sport fishing industry, 14,000 people, we also have some government affairs things that go on there, talking from everything from right whales and red snapper to wind farms, and certainly in Florida, there's a lot of conversation about the Everglades. It's such an amazing show. I've been so fortunate. I've been going to the show since 1989, and now I've worked for the organization for 11 of them, and I'm still excited every year. And no matter how busy it is for us as a staff, it's still a good time because it's so nice to be able to see the companies be successful, enjoy what's going on around them, learn. Like you said, it's building relationships, seeing friends. It's nonstop for those really 4 days. And I'm always somewhat sad when it ends because I did not get around to seeing everybody I want to see. And I was like, oh, geez. And so I spend more time texting after that. It's like, geez, sorry I didn't get to see you. I hope it was a good show. And that's still going on all week long.
Now, a lot of our members are asking this question. Why is it in Florida? Why is it not somewhere else? Why isn't it centralized in the middle of the United States? What is the draw to Florida? And I remember, and maybe I'm wrong, but wasn't it in Las Vegas for a few years?
It spent more time in Vegas than probably anywhere else. We've been in Florida now for 11 straight years.
Okay.
There's very good reasons for it. And the first one I ever went to was actually in your backyard in Anaheim. Or actually, that was the second or third one. 1991, it was in Anaheim. Vegas kind of found a home for a long time, but it got not just stale. The retailers weren't really coming out. just to give you an idea, the last time we were in Vegas 12 years ago, there were only 7,000 total people at the show. And now there's 14,000. There's good reasons to be in Florida. That's where the fish are. I'm not saying California is not a great fishery. It absolutely is. And you've got great consumer shows out there. In Florida, Orlando is easy to get to, not just from anywhere in the country, but we had 75 countries represented at the show last week. In the state of Florida, there's more than 500 fishing tackle retailers in the state. So it's much easier for them to get to. There's not a lot of fishing tackle retailers in Las Vegas or within 4 hours, really, when you think about it. And so there's a lot of people that can drive also from South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, et cetera. And so we would have, out of the 14,000, there'll be in the neighborhood of 1,200 independent retailers, different retailers, where Bass Pro's one, Walmart's one. In the state of Florida, you could have 500 retailers there. If you ask the manufacturers, and we have, they say that they do, and depending on who you're talking to, 15 to 25% of their total business all year long is done in the state of Florida. And so we need to make sure we satisfy that. They're fishing there 12 months a year, every day, and they've got so many species to fish for, weather, et cetera. It's the place to be. Las Vegas, they could care less whether we brought the show back to them. It would cost us more money. We'd have fewer people. There'd be less money raised to support our government affairs issues. And so we're locked into Florida for at least through 2028 at this point. And it's such a good relationship. There's folks really bend over backwards to work with us, and it works.
Yeah, the facility's easy to get to from the airport. It's that outdoor area there's not a lot of places you can go to that have that. And yeah, Las Vegas doesn't make much sense because there's not a lot of water around there. I guess you get a few catfish fishermen that like to fish Lake Mead, but guys, well, you don't understand, when you get to Florida, when I went 5 years ago for the first time, we were working on that 80-foot Viking in Fort Lauderdale. I found out that we don't even have any boats in California. There were so many boats on that new river, Fort Lauderdale, the new river. Oh my gosh, just that river alone, the amount of boats, we don't even have anything like that in all San Diego, LA, Newport combined, doesn't even, for one river in Fort Lauderdale. So I understand the fishing industry. Southern California, gang, is just a very, very small piece of it. When you get to Florida and you see what's going on down there, you'll understand why ICAST is in Florida, because it's the central. That is where fishermen really are. That's where the manufacturers are. That's where all the products get to be tested. There's everywhere you look. If you haven't been to Florida, it's quite amazing. Every corner has water. Every single corner you pull up to a stoplight, there's a pond on all four corners. It's amazing.
Really, our house, was up on a hill. We were 60 feet above sea level where we lived when we were down there. So we were way up. We didn't have to worry about getting flooded out. But and that's not to take away from California. But California is a much bigger state, obviously, and so if California has overall more fishing licenses, both have somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 million anglers each year. But somehow there just seems to be more of the retailers are located within a 4-hour range, if you will. So it's worked for us. It's worked for our board of directors who make the decision as well, and the members. They talk about it. It's funny. We'll hear a rumor. It's like, I hear you're going back to Vegas next year. I'm like, yeah, that's just not that bad. And it's funny how the whisper down the lane gets going with this industry, because, as you know, not only do you like to talk, our industry likes to talk, and they tend to not let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Exactly.
That's not me.
One of our members, Jeanette, she's just wondering, and this was a question I got from a lot of people, sent me messages asking me, is it ever going to be open to the general public? And the reason why I think it isn't is because the manufacturers, we're all trying to do business there to sell our product to tackle stores and Walmarts and Turners and stuff like that. And so if you bring in the public, then it's gonna, and don't get me wrong, we love the public. We need you guys all involved. But if we bring the public into this show, now help me, I'm probably talking out my butt, but it makes it so that we don't get to do a lot of business because we're talking with the public and showing them our lures and stuff, where you can come out to the Bard Hall show or the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Show, and then you can see the products that were introduced at the ICAST. And all across the United States, they have public open for the public. But this show, and help me out, Glenn, is so we can get the products to the companies that need it, right?
Right. And so it's a fair question, and we get it certainly every year. And there are some manufacturers that would like to open it up to the public. A majority do not want to do that, and a majority of our board do not want to do that. And it's exactly what you said. You know, right now we're trying to conduct business. It's commerce for next year. And so products are introduced at the show. Some of them are not on the market yet. And it's really about selling them this fall. And some of the products could be certainly available in the past or this year, but a lot of them are just being introduced for the first time. Now, we talked about you could add a day or two afterwards, but the booths are not really set up for that. They're set up for it as a trade show. They're not set up to sell the product there in the store or in the convention center, and they don't really want to bring all that product there to try to sell it in the convention center. And then you're dealing with the individual retailers that they would need to support. They certainly don't want to compete with their other retailers. So like you said, I think the Bard Hall show, the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing show, there's shows like that all across the country. And that's a great place to talk to your local dealer and be able to purchase the product. And so as of today and next year, and probably as long as I'm around, it will stay just a trade show.
Yeah, and then I wanted to just tell you, for a guy like myself that's been in the industry so long, when you get, and I consider it like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the golden ticket, when one of your sponsors or someone says, "Hey, Cap Dave, come on, we're taking you to ICAST." It is, for me, it's literally like the golden ticket to go to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. It's, for me, walking around on that show floor, I just want you to know it's electric. For me, it's electric. It would be like going to the Hall of Fame if you're a baseball fan. When you get to walk around and see all the different people, Glenn, that are like the icons of the industry, and you're walking around and everybody's kind of calm, kind of mellow, because it's a place that we're doing business. We don't have to stand up straight and be ready to talk to 500 different people that might buy one lure. So it's a really spectacular event. Those of you that are on the inside that have been, you know what I'm talking about. But it feels electric for a guy like me when you're walking around that floor. You do a phenomenal job producing that show.
Thanks. I've got a phenomenal staff. Couldn't do it really without our Vice President, Blake Swango, and his team. And the entire ASA team, everybody does whatever we ask them to do in that particular week. It does take a full year to produce this show. You know, not only will we follow up on things that we can improve upon, but you know, we have contracts with so many different vendors, hotels, and Orange County Convention Center. It's laying out the floor. It's working through all the finances, et cetera. There's just so much that goes into it. There you are, and so we it's so important that we keep the show clean, you know, professional. We've got to make sure that we are providing a return on investment to our exhibitors, our members, because they spend a lot of money and time to be there. And so the thing that probably gets people as excited as anything is the new products that are put on display. The companies spend the entire year preparing whatever new products that they're going to have on the show floor. And that means that they're working on this more than a year in advance. To sometimes anything that was in our new product showcase couldn't have been for sale before January 1 of this year. And so they're holding off on sales and they're presenting things particular this week. And so we had in our new product showcase over 980 products that were being introduced at the show. That doesn't include all the products that were still around the show floor, thousands more that are new, but they didn't want to compete with themselves. And so we had 41 different categories of products were entered in. A lot of fly fishing categories were added this year. And then our friends at Penn took home Best of Show with their new Fathom electric reel.
Yeah, when you go into the new product showcase, everything is just presented so proper. I set up trade shows for a living for 18 years. I left the sport fishing industry and worked for Freeman Decorating, setting up trade shows. And I can tell you from doing it for a living for 18 years, you guys put on one heck of a show. It's so well laid out, so professionally laid out. The carpet, you can always tell when it's a real show when they got carpet. When they got carpet, gang, you go, okay, this is a real trade show. But you would be blown away if you ever got an opportunity to go inside, gang, and see what was going on. Because for me, I can't imagine not getting to go. It hurts my feelings when I don't get to go the years I haven't gone. So it means a lot to me to get to go there. And thank you very much for just being there for me.
Well, you're important, and you represent a lot of folks, and it's important for you to have those relationships and engagements with the industry as well, so that you have firsthand knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah, we got lucky. I mean, I talked to you before. I asked you, is anything off limit? You said, no, go ahead. So we did a live show, Elliot and I, every day on the show floor. We were live showing people the inner workings of the show, which was so cool to get to do. So thank you for allowing us to do that.
Yeah.
That was fun. I had a good time. Everyone seemed to gather around and listen to us when we were talking, and our audience was huge online during the show. So everybody's commenting right now how cool it was to see the inner workings. So
I love that, because it's the media play a huge role in the future of our sport, and so it's the commerce is not just between the retailers and the manufacturers there on site. It's also the way the media are going to share the information, not just on the new products, but everything in the technologies that are out there. And so I was blown away by how much social media came out of this particular event. It's nonstop. If you scroll through ICAST show on Instagram, it's so many people are attaching to the show, and it just goes on and on and on. One person had, and I'm not going to get too far into the details, but has already had 1.9 million views on something he talked about at the show, and it's kind of crazy that it can spiral that way for so many. There he is.
But the payoff just being nice, and it does. I just moderated a panel at the biggest fishing show in the world, and I went to go get lunch at this Island Time Jamaican place. I ordered this jerk plate. The lady said, "I like your hair." I said, "Thank you." I started talking to her. It didn't come with coleslaw, but at the end she said, "Do you want coleslaw?" I was like, and then I asked her about the Jamaican beef patties. They were $7. I was like, I can't afford all that. But at the end she said, "You want a Jamaican beef patty?" "Yes, I do." I just talked to her. She was incredibly nice, and she was from the Bahamas. So thank you to you. Be nice to people, get interested in them. You'll get free food, Jamaican beef patties at the next sport fishing show you go to. Another.
That's crazy. He wasn't even talking about the show. He had 1.9 million views for that.
That is how it works. I mean, me and Elliot, we've been pounding this thing for a long time. We're blown away by the engagement we get. So I know what you're feeling when you see a 1.9 million views on a sandwich video. We got 87 million views on how to tie up your boat. So it just blows my mind. It just
great.
It's cool though. Social media is the key, but making people aware of what's going on, and the American Sport Fishing Association is so far in front of all these things that are coming down the pipe for us right now. And I told you this was going to go by super quick. We got about 15 more minutes. I want to get into some of the things that the people out there can get involved with you, because at the end of the day, Glenn, it takes money to slow down this. I can't even think of the right word, but to stop people from fishing. And your motto and your message is to keep America fishing, gang. It's so important. And I don't understand why the United States of America doesn't want us to fish. I just don't understand that. So maybe you can help me understand.
So I don't know if I want to go that far.
Okay.
There's 57.7 million people that went fishing in 2023. And so we are fishing. And I would argue with anybody around the world that we have the best fisheries and fishery policy around the world because of things like our federal excise tax law that went into place, Dingell-Johnson Act back in 1950. And so if people don't know, it's another reason to thank these manufacturers of sport fishing equipment. That first 10% of every sale of their product goes back to conservation through the federal government and the Sport Fish Restoration Act. And that money is then used to divvy it up between states and other important conservation issues around the world, around the country, excuse me. And that's more than a couple $100 million from the sport fishing industry alone, combined with motorboat fuel tax. About $700 million is going back to conservation. And so anglers are conservationists, manufacturers are conservationists. And I think that we've got the folks in Washington, D.C. understanding that. And we work with a lot of different organizations, and they see that if we would admit it, we'd be the first to admit it. If the anglers, if the industry are a part of the problem, then we'll own it and we will change it. If we're not, then we're going to probably have a discussion or two on other ways to go about making these things successful and having good conservation efforts. And so really the message to get back to your crew today is through keepamericafishing.org, you're going to be able to see the issues that we're focused on right now around the country. And as I said, just because it's happening on the East Coast, we need your help on the West Coast or wherever you are across the country to make sure that we are getting the voice. One, you need to learn. Two, you need to get engaged. Three, you need to take action. And when you do that, the sport fishing community can't be beat. And I mean that. The entire industry is relatively small to the number of anglers out there. When you think about our 880 members, they're servicing 57.7 million anglers. When we think about retailers, Bass Pro is just one of about, I throw a number around 3,500 retailers. There's actually more than that when you think about, Walmart's got 4,700 stores, and they're very active they sell more fishing tackle than anybody. Ace Hardware has 5,000 stores, and they sell fishing tackle in a lot of those stores. So it's so important to get the message out through the stores and through the consumers that you matter. And when we get together, we're going to be able to push back, and Keep America Fishing is our advocacy arm to do just that. So issues like you said, 30 by 30 are talked about there. We've got an issue right now with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service who would like to ban lead fishing tackle in the future. If anybody is listening, they may claim that they're not, but they opened up 8 refuges last year, and they said in 3 years you're not going to be allowed to use lead fishing tackle in those. That's not okay, because what happens is it's got to get back to science. And the federal government's really good to fall back on saying best available science. Well, their available science kind of stinks. It's old, it's outdated. They're supposed to be taking care of species and fish and conservation regarding the population of those species. And they're just wanting to do this by manipulating the law. Like you mentioned before with the Chevron doctrine, they're not going to be able to manipulate the law in the future. They're going to have to stick to the law. And if that means that we have to fight back, I'll just say, with lawsuits, then so be it. But at the same time, we'd rather have a conversation. We'd rather leave the door open to fight another day and not have to go down that road. And it's somewhat common sense. So let's do the research. And if anglers and lead are a problem with whether it's fish or wildlife, then we will take action. If we are not the problem, then that is why we need to make sure we have the science that says, let's figure something else out. And so lead's just one of them. Soft plastic baits, they tried to outlaw them in the state of Maine. We pushed back on that and said, you know what, people probably aren't getting rid of the soft plastics the way they should. Don't throw them over the side of the boat. They're going to last for 10,000 years in the water. They last longer than they would on a sidewalk. So let's throw away the product properly. It's a pitch it campaign we called it on Keep America Fishing. And so those are things that with the administration that we have to be careful of them interpreting the law the way they want to. But there's other things that we're pushing forward right now, and we need to talk about participation, and that's even talking about the youth. We're trying to get NOAA. We've got a bill right now on the floor that would have NOAA be able to spend $2 million through government grants to support programs that help get kids out on the water, specifically saltwater, specifically around the marinas. And so I know that you have folks working with that, and we're very supportive of this issue. And I think we're going to get it through Congress.
Yeah, when you work with Mike Lum, Mike's part of the staff for ICAST and Rollo's Kids at Sea. There's something really cool you and I were talking about before we went live. There's a chance to get a grant to take more children fishing, right?
Yep. It would be passing this act through Congress and signed by the president to make they can take $2 million a year to support grants that support these kids. Because a lot of times, these folks don't have enough money, and they spend their own money to try to have the product to get the kids out on the water. And as you said, if the kids, some of the research that exists out there that says 86% of people went fishing before the age of 12. That tells us then that if you didn't go fishing before the age of 12, the chances are you'll never go fishing. And so it's so important for us to get them out on the water, and not just once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. We need to show them a good time. We need to be able to help show them that they can do this, that they are able to participate and have fun and learn and really turn into the conservationists of the future, because fishing is going to be important to them.
Yeah, it's a big move. It's probably one of the biggest things I talk about on my show all the time is how important it is to take them fishing when they're young, and then also take them fishing the proper way and make it fun. It's got to be super, super fun when you take them. There can't be any, it's not the day to say no, is what I always say. It's the day to say yes. They can have a candy bar, they can have a soda, they can look at their phone, because
Absolutely.
if you don't make it fun, if you make it a restriction, then they're not going to want to go.
Dave, it's so true. And I know, based on our son, raising him on the water, a lot of times he wanted to play with the shrimp or the bait in the bait well. A lot of times it was just he and his friend screwing around on the boat, doing whatever it is they were doing. It was hard to keep maybe them focused while I was looking for the fish. Got to make it easy, and it doesn't have to be blue marlin fishing by any stretch. I know I still get thrilled catching whatever species is available to me, and it's so much fun. It's even more fun watching somebody else catch a fish. It will do your heart good to have someone on the water and have them, that smile that comes up on their face when they hook up and get it into the boat. It's just hard to replace. I can't do it enough. And everybody who's had the experience of taking others fishing knows what that feels like.
Yeah, there's nothing better than seeing a child's face when they reel in their first fish, or they see their first sea lion or their first dolphin or their first whale, and playing in the bait trough right there. Those are all things that they need to experience without the word no. You guys can leave the no word alone for the day you take children fishing. It'll be okay. I mean, they can't jump over the side or something silly like that, but you should leave that no word out, gang. You only got one opportunity. If you blow it when you take them fishing, they're not going to go. I don't care if Wahoo are biting at the bait barge in Dana Point Harbor. They don't want to go if you blew it. Make it fun. Make it really fun. It's super important to keep children fishing. We got so much stuff coming down the pipe as far as closures in California. This 30 by 30's got us all scared because they kicked the can down the road for a little while. Wayne talked about it 2 years ago on our podcast. Now it's coming to fruition, and Gavin's getting ready to get out of there. So he wants probably this feather in his cap before he leaves. So we're in trouble here, right on the West Coast.
So we're going to still work closely with the CCA California and others. We're working with the administration there in Sacramento and with California's fisheries services there's reasonable conversation that can still be had. And we are absolutely going to be pushing the envelope when it comes to saying you're already protecting so much of the state. Now, you've seen it too many times before, and your California government's going to a lot of times do what they want to do. But at the same time, we, all of the folks in California, all the folks that fish California, I love fishing in California, need to step up and make sure their voices are heard, not just through Keep America Fishing, but through CCA and through whatever outlets you have. It's so important. Don't depend on somebody else to do it for you. You have to take ownership. Everyone has to be involved. It's not something that is somebody else's job. It's everybody's job.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. I want to talk about one thing before we get out of here, and that would be Proposition 65. And this will help people to understand why the piece of equipment costs a little bit more in California than it does in Florida. Can you talk about that for a minute, the Clean Water Act?
Well, the with Prop 65, and it's gone back and forth as part of the problem, is that you've got folks out there that have decided that, and we already know everything gives you cancer, and do you have to write it down again? Should you be eating some of these different parts of your fishing reel that might have 100 carcinogens? Probably not, and yet every single product has to have that label on it, and they've changed the label sizes. And so we are continually battling with the government to try to back off on some of this pressure. And what happens is it's the lawyers out there that tend to be the ones out there looking for the product that might not have the label on it. And it impacts the whole industry, because a lot of folks that don't even think they're selling their product in California, well, guess what? It gets picked up by some wholesaler, it gets distributed, it gets sold online. Next thing you know, a lawyer's bought it in California, and it didn't have the label on it. And guess what? He's going back to that company, says, you better pay me X amount of dollars, or I'm turning you in for not having the label on it. I don't think the label's saving any lives. I think it like you said, it costs money to put labels on everything. They have to redo their packaging. Just the labels themselves, and applying those labels, guess what? Costs money. It costs time for these to be done, whether here in the States or anywhere else around the world. So it's not supporting the value of what they probably intended originally. And again, if anybody's eating fishing reels or rods, we probably should have them examined for something else.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the label's going to slow them down, but it's a lawyer thing now. When I was talking to Ben over at Promar, there's a group of lawyers in California that are just looking for that package that doesn't have it on there so they can sue them, so they can make money. It's just crazy where we're at here. And there's so many silly things. Go ahead.
We spend time, so we've done seminars for our manufacturers to make sure that they're doing what they have to do. They have to follow the law, and so we don't want them to get sued, and so they still have to do the labeling. We try to help them through that process. And
yeah, you don't want to get sued because you talked about this in the beginning of the show. The profit margins are so small in this industry that every single thing matters. And when we have to go around and put the label on, and we get all the labels put onto all the products saying that don't eat this reel, don't eat the handle, and then you get them done, and the minute you get them done, they change now it's got to be bigger font. It's got to be a different font. It's got to be a different color font. It's got to be and a lot of the packages that Promar sells, there's no room to even put it on because it's such a small product, but you better have it on there or you're going to. These are just one of the many, many things that Glenn and Wayne and everybody that's out there trying to help keep fishing open are up against on a daily basis. And it's super important. That's why I bring you on people like you, Glenn, to come on the show to just kind of help everybody out there understand that we don't want to be, the two of us, the last thing we want to do is be political. Unfortunately, in this industry now, it's super political.
That's right. So we work with other groups and created the Hunt Fish 30 by 30. And so with Congressional Sportsman Foundation and others, we're trying to push back on these things. And so whether it's 30 by 30, whether it's Prop 65, whether it's marine protected areas, we're going to try to have your back, the manufacturer's back, the angler's back, but we're going to need your help. We need all the anglers to participate, and that's why we want them to go to keepamericafishing.org and sign up, receive the information from us, and take action when necessary.
Yeah, keepamericafishing.org is super important, and we need, like Mike Lum said when he was on the show, we're at the point now, gang, where Mike said, I don't care anymore. We're begging now. We need you all to help us. There's a handful of us that show up to the meetings here on the West Coast. There's just a handful of people that show up to the dinners. It's very, very disappointing to Mike Lum, myself, and I'm sure I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but when we show up to these meetings and it's just us, when we look around and we're like, where are you guys? Hello, help.
Yeah, it's not an 80-20 rule. It's about 5% probably participation. But if we could move 5% to 10% and double the amount of people engaged, it'll have an impact. And so we're counting on all of you to do that.
And I promised you an hour. I know you're on vacation. Our hour's up. Glenn,
I got to get out of here.
thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on our silly little podcast and talking to our 100,000 people that are watching. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time. I know you got to get back to the family, so thank you very much.
Captain Dave, I appreciate you and your show, and hope everybody goes fishing and takes someone with them.
Yeah, gang, listen to what Glenn says. Donate, be a part of Keep America Fishing. Gang, check me out tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll have the live on the water fishing reports. How big was that striper you caught right there? That thing looks like a whopper, like what, 50 pounds?
42 inches, 45 pounds or so.
All right. Yeah, that's a beautiful striper. A lot of people saw it. We were using it for the promotion. They wanted to know. So there you go. I thought 50. I was pretty dang close, gang. Thank you very much.